Our next inductee is the late Jim Riggs. Jim was a 1968 graduate of East Liverpool, Ohio High School, where he lettered in golf, and was a 1973 graduate of Point Park University in Pittsburgh, where he majored in journalism. And how coincidental it is that Scott Kinberg, the current editor who followed in Jim's footsteps, also graduated from Point Park College, so they had quite a bond over all these years. Jim was the sports editor for the Jamestown Post-Journal for 40 years, and the official scorer for the Jamestown, New York Penn League baseball team at Dietrich Park for 38 years. Jim was inducted into the Jamestown Community College Athletic Hall of Fame, and he created the Post-Journal Champions Golf Tournament and the Post-Journal Men's Basketball Tournament at JCC, of which it is now named in his honor. Through his many years of journalism, he won multiple Associated Press writing awards for his column, All in a Day's Sports, that was published each week in the Post-Journal. I personally was lucky enough to be the subject of one of Jim's articles several years ago, where he titled it, Who's Coming to Dinner? And he interviewed me about my experience of doing the banquet. All of Jim's years spent here in Jamestown, for the most part, he was a member of the Chautauqua Sports Hall of Fame Board of Directors for 34 years until the time of his passing. I would like to introduce Jim's son, Jim, who will be accepting his award this evening, and I present as an inductee into the Chautauqua Sports Hall of Fame, Jim Riggs.
Thank you. Over 50 years ago, decades before fantasy football and mock drafts became mainstream across the nation, many seasons of football fantasy took place in the East Liverpool, Ohio, and Chautauqua, New York bedrooms of little Jimmy Riggs on his electric football game. That magical vibrating metal board with the little players who buzzed from one end zone to the other, and not always the right one, was the only thing that he wanted for Christmas one year as a little boy. After football season, he would move on to his Stratomatic baseball game that, according to his sister, he played in his bedroom closet for some reason. Not only did he play the game, but he also used the game's scoring and statistics sheets to track real Major League Baseball games and players. In fact, he became so comfortable and familiar with these score sheets that he actually used them 20, 30, and 40 years later when he was the official scorer for the Jamestown Expos and Jammers. In school, my dad was never a great student. He suffered through many school classes using a pocket radio, and I think it may be this little earbud. And he would listen to live baseball games during his classes. And while attending Point Park College in Pittsburgh in the late 60s and early 70s, instead of focusing strictly on his studies, he was also a season ticket holder for the Penguins, taking in almost every game of those early seasons in the franchise's history. Jim married my mom, Sharon, on an August afternoon in 1974. They were probably exchanging vows at right about the time that the Pirates beat the Dodgers 4-3. I'm not aware of him using an earbud during the ceremony, but you can't quite be sure. Delighted with the win for the Bucks, he, and clearly the perfect bride for him, set off for his dream honeymoon to Cooperstown and the Baseball Hall of Fame. I share these stories to show how my dad's whole world revolved around the 4 seasons that make up each year: baseball, football, basketball, and hockey. He turned this personal passion into his life's work and used it to impact the Chautauqua region for over 4 decades. Although this was not his birthplace, Jamestown and its surrounding areas was most definitely his hometown. Shortly after getting married, Jim started in the sports department at the Post-Journal, a position he held until he was forced into retirement by leukemia shortly before his death. Those 40-plus years were filled with countless photos, games, articles, and columns. As the sports editor, he had a hand in any and every sport in the area. His mission in that role was to promote sports at all levels in this region. My dad always tried to do what he thought was best for local athletics. It mattered more to him than a score and recap for all of the local youth games get published than a story about pro sports that is covered elsewhere. Why? Because those scores and recaps mattered more to the families of this area, and many such families, mine included, still have some of those clippings tucked away in shoe boxes and scrapbooks many years later. Likewise, Jim was known to follow local stars up through the college and even professional ranks and interview them years later. He would always make sure to get the individuals' thoughts and memories of their time spent in southwestern New York because he wanted to cover the local significance. Local significance is also why Jim served as a director of this Hall of Fame for decades. I attended many Chautauqua Sports Hall of Fame meetings when I was little. I remember sitting in a dark back room in a restaurant at the Chautauqua Mall, as I remember, getting to meet some very distinguished and very old men, at least from a 5-year-old's perspective, people like Russ Dietrich and Como Tane, and many others who graced this hall. I was too young to have any idea what was going on, but I knew that it was very important to my dad, as was this dinner that I attended with him many times as a child. That is why being here and standing in front of you, all of you tonight, is especially meaningful for me. My dad tirelessly served the teams and athletic departments of the Chautauqua region for many years and made sure that deserving individuals who had an impact were recognized by induction into this Hall of Fame. It is because of his service and dedication that I believe that this honor is so well deserved. Jim's wife, my mom Sharon, his sister Carol, and I would like to thank the Chautauqua Sports Hall of Fame for this honor, especially all of the members who served with my dad for so long. We thank all of the local youth sports organizations, the former Jamestown Expos and Jammers teams and management, as well as the Jamestown Community College and Jamestown High School athletic departments, all of whom he worked so closely for and with throughout his career. Finally, we want to thank the Post-Journal. My dad's personal passion for sports never could have become a lifelong dream career without the opportunities, encouragement, and support of the PJ over the years. From his beloved electric football game as a little boy to the Penguins' 5-0 shutout of the Rangers in the 2016 Eastern Conference quarterfinals that I helped him get set up to watch on his laptop in the hospital about a day and a half before his own final horn sounded. My dad's entire life was dedicated to watching, covering, reading about, and simply enjoying sports. Fortunately for him, and for all of us, he was able to use that passion to the benefit of the Chautauqua region's sports community. We thank you for recognizing and honoring his decades of service and dedication tonight.
Really well done, Jimmy. Thank you so much.